This building changed everything about train station design. Before, they were not even supposed to look that beautiful. But there was a reason to make the station look especially stunning. And it has inspired a huge change. Magnificent and beautiful stations started to appear everywhere. I've spent 50 hours doing tours around it, and I'm going to show you why it is so beautiful, how it was nearly demolished, and why its contemporary redesign is genius. Watch this and you'll never look at architecture the same way again. This building is a splurge, to be honest. Even the brick is top tier. These were specially fired for this project in Nottingham using high-quality clay. They are smooth and dense, so the seams look clean and uniform. Compare this to the brickwork of the competitors at King's Cross Station. And then there is the stonework. The details here aren't just sculpted in plaster, they are carved in stone. Each of these capitals started as a single, massive block of stone, and it was hand-carved by sculptors. Imagine all the craftsmanship and cost that went into this. And here is something even more impressive: monolithic granite columns. Almost all stone columns you see are made out of many stacked stone blocks. That's how they did it in ancient Greece, in Renaissance Italy, in medieval Europe. It's very difficult to quarry a stone block of this size, transport it, and then install it vertically, so only a few cultures actually worked with monolithic granite columns. Ancient Egypt and ancient Rome, the Russian Empire, and the US during certain periods, and Victorian Britain as well. This is not just about aesthetics. This was a show of resources at hand and the ability to manage complex processes. And there is another layer to it, having to do with business strategy. Almost all the stone used here was sourced from the areas served by this railway. The entire building is basically a showcase of the goods that the railway can transport. In terms of the style, Victorian architects were often inspired by a certain style of the past, or even several ones. George Gilbert Scott, the architect of this building, was a big Neo-Gothic master, and it shows. There are trefoil and lancet arches, turrets with spires, rather narrow columns with Gothic capitals. But there is a unique twist to this style. Normally, George Gilbert Scott's designs were much closer to actual medieval buildings. Here is a couple of his churches and a couple of medieval ones for comparison. But here we see something different. This is his unique version of Neo-Gothic architecture, very vibrant, bold with details, and with very asymmetrical composition. He had been developing this manner in a few earlier buildings, and here he finally got his chance to express this architecture on a grand scale. Even the asymmetry itself was a novelty. In the 1960s, they mostly went for symmetrical compositions. And there is so much freedom and movement here. One wing is adjacent to the street, but most of the building is set back. There is a mix of various towers and gables and chimneys. This all makes the building look like a skyline of its own. Plus, it is raised above the street level, standing on a podium. This was for technical reasons, but it also gives an aura of grandeur, which was important for the company. Railway terminals weren't allowed into the centre of London past this street, which is why 3 of them ended up side by side here. Each one was built by a private railway company, and they were all competitors. St Pancras was the last of the 3. Before it had its own terminal, Midland Railway had to rent space from its neighbours and rivals. So when they finally went for building their own, they had something to prove. They wanted the architecture to send a message. Look, we've arrived, we're significant, and we're doing quite well. That's why they held an architectural competition, and they were ready to spend money on something so grand, a luxury hotel that became the façade of the station. The hotel did all right in the 1870s, and then by the late 19th century, the standards have shifted. Cesar Ritz came in and redefined luxury hospitality. Suddenly things like private bathrooms, which were not a thing here, became the new standard for the luxury hotels. So the hotel was closed in 1935, and the building was turned into railway offices. And we can't even imagine today how outdated the Victorian architecture was seen by some in the 1960s. Many 19th century buildings were demolished back then, in London and elsewhere, not because they were damaged or unsafe, but just because they were not recognized as significant. So there were several attempts to close St Pancras Station and demolish it, just as they demolished the nearby Euston Arch. But thanks to the efforts of campaigners, it was saved and granted a listed status. Now it still works as a train station, but to tell that part of the story, we need to go behind the facade. Behind the facade there is another big masterpiece, the Great Train Shed. This was built several years before the facade, in 1868, so the trains would start running as soon as possible. And even without the facade complete, this was the largest covered area in the world, with a roof spanning 75 meters. Just having all this volume without a single column under this roof looked astonishing back then. And I love how the modern reconstruction of the space has preserved all the atmosphere, even enhanced it a bit. In 2007, St Pancras became the terminal for Eurostar trains to Paris. That meant border checks and security had to be added, but instead of squeezing all those new functions into the ground floor, they used the undercroft, a huge storage area beneath the platform. Historically, there was no opening here, there were just platforms, so that space was all industrial and dark. Now it feels bright and cohesive, thanks to the large openings and the high train shed that's above. And there are some design choices that make this space feel more lightweight, like painting the original columns white or using this really lightweight looking banister design. So yeah, this building was a game changer. It made a case that a train station could be iconic. It could be designed by a major architect and look stunning. And it sparked a trend. Within just a few years, beautiful stations started popping up all over the world, including one that clearly took inspiration straight from St Pancras.